How do you make your enemies fear you without ever saying a single word? No shouting, no threats. Just presence. The kind of presence that makes people pause, second-guess themselves, and wonder what you're capable of. That's real power. Not the kind that comes from force, but the kind that comes from restraint. From calm. From silence. Imagine standing in front of a wild predator. It doesn't growl, it doesn't move, it just watches. Silent, steady, dangerous. That silence is more terrifying than any roar because it speaks of certainty, of control. Or think of a master chess player staring at the board, unreadable, untouchable. His opponent is sweating, guessing, doubting, and that uncertainty is where the fear begins. Because when people can't figure you out, they fear you. And in that fear, they give you power. In this video, we'll break down 7 silent strategies rooted in Stoic philosophy that will help you build an unshakable presence. These principles don't just command respect. They create quiet strength that makes your enemies fear what you might do next. Let's begin. 1. Master your emotions. What's the first step to making your enemies fear you without ever speaking? Mastering your emotions. This is the foundation of inner power, the kind that can't be touched or shaken. But let's be honest, controlling your emotions in the face of disrespect, provocation, or betrayal isn't easy. It's one of the hardest things to do. That's why most people never achieve it. But when you do, it changes everything. You become unpredictable, unshakable. And in that stillness, your power becomes undeniable. Why do people try to provoke you in the first place? Because they want control. They want to manipulate your emotional state, make you lose your composure, and pull you into their chaos. They know that if they can get you angry, reactive, or defensive, they've already won. You're no longer leading the situation. They are. But when you respond with silence, with calm, with total composure, you send a very different message. You don't control me. I control me. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Roman emperors and a Stoic philosopher, wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." That line isn't just poetic, it's practical. A calm mind is a weapon. It gives you clarity when others are blinded by rage. It gives you focus when others are consumed by emotion. It allows you to stay grounded while the rest of the world loses balance. And when people see that they can't move you emotionally, they start to fear your strength. Let me share a story that illustrates this power. A man I once knew, we'll call him Thomas, worked with a colleague who made it their mission to provoke him. This person would throw insults, make sarcastic remarks, and try to humiliate him during meetings. At first, Thomas reacted. He got defensive, he argued back. But every time he did, he felt worse, and his colleague only became more aggressive. One day, Thomas made a different choice. He decided to stop reacting. The next time the provocations came, he stayed calm. No anger, no defense. Just silence and a steady gaze. His colleague was stunned. The insults didn't land. The bait wasn't taken. And for the first time, the power shifted. Over time, the provocation stopped completely. Thomas didn't need to fight to win. He just needed to stop giving away his peace. This is the essence of emotional mastery. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about choosing not to let them control you. And that choice gives you an edge that most people will never understand. When someone yells at you and you remain calm, they feel small. When they expect you to explode, but you offer silence, they question themselves. You throw them off balance, and that confusion becomes your power. So how do you start building this emotional strength? First, you have to know your triggers. Pay attention to the moments that make you tense, frustrated, or angry. Instead of reacting automatically, pause. Ask yourself, why is this bothering me? What's the story I'm telling myself right now? That awareness is the first layer of control. Second, practice the pause. Deep breathing, mindfulness, and grounding techniques are not just trendy habits. They're tools for real strength. When you feel your heart rate spike or your thoughts start racing, stop. Take a breath. Slow down. That moment of pause is where power lives. It's where decisions are made, not reactions. Third, reframe your perspective. The Stoics believe that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. What someone says to you doesn't have power until you assign it meaning. So ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this really about me, or is it about them? More often than not, people who try to provoke you are acting from their own insecurity or pain. Seeing it for what it is gives you the upper hand, and finally recognize that your calmness is a form of leadership. It shows others that you can be trusted in crisis, that you have control over yourself when others lose control, and that is a powerful form of influence. In fact, it's one of the most intimidating traits you can have, because it means you are not reactive, not manipulable, and not weak. In a world full of people who shout, overreact, and crumble under pressure, your ability to remain calm will set you apart. It will draw attention without asking for it. It will earn respect without demanding it. And most importantly, it will protect your peace while unsettling your enemies. Mastering your emotions is not just a Stoic virtue, it's a tactical advantage. When you own your inner world, no one else can. And in that stillness, in that unshakable presence, you'll find the kind of power that doesn't need to be loud, because it already commands the room. 2. Maintain an unshakable presence. There's a certain kind of power that doesn't need to speak. It walks into a room and is felt before a single word is said. That's what it means to have an unshakable presence. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it changes the atmosphere. People notice it, they shift, they listen. Because something about the way you carry yourself tells them, this person is not to be underestimated. What does it really mean to have presence? It's not about being the most talkative or having the biggest personality. It's about energy, composure, stillness. It's the look in your eyes, the confidence in your posture, the intention behind your movements. It's knowing who you are and not needing anyone else to confirm it. When you carry yourself with that level of self-respect, people pick up on it instantly. You don't need to demand attention. Your presence earns it for you. In a world filled with noise, people who speak without thinking, and constant attempts to prove one's worth, the quiet individual who simply exists with purpose becomes magnetic. Their silence says more than most people's speeches. That's the kind of person who leaves others wondering, what does he know that I don't? What is she thinking that she's not saying? That uncertainty breeds both curiosity and fear, and that's exactly the edge you want. The Stoics believe deeply in inner stillness. Lao Tzu once said, silence is a source of great strength. This isn't about being passive or distant. It's about being rooted. You become like a mountain. No matter how strong the winds, you don't sway. That's intimidating, because most people are ruled by emotions, by external opinions, by the need to impress. But when they meet someone who is centered, who isn't chasing approval, it throws them off. You've just stepped into rare territory, and rare is always powerful. Let me tell you about someone I once knew. Let's call him Ethan. Ethan was quiet, but never invisible. He wasn't the guy cracking jokes or commanding attention, but whenever he entered a room, the energy shifted, people slowed down. Conversations changed. Why? Because Ethan had presence. He stood tall. He moved with purpose. He never rushed. And when he spoke, people leaned in, not because he spoke loudly, but because his words always carried weight. There was nothing performative about him. No need to dominate, no need to convince. And that was what made him so respected and quietly feared. You don't build this kind of presence overnight. It takes practice, discipline, and above all, it takes self-respect. If you don't believe you're worthy, no one else will. So, how do you begin to develop this powerful Stoic presence? First, master your posture. Stand tall. Keep your head up, shoulders back. Walk like someone who knows where they're going, even if you're unsure. Your body speaks before your mouth ever does. Don't let it betray you. Posture alone can communicate confidence, calm, and quiet authority. Second, move with intention. Don't fidget or rush. Every step, every gesture, every word should feel deliberate. When you move with purpose, people see that you're in control, not just of your body, but of your mind. That's rare. And people notice it immediately. Third, embrace silence. Don't rush to fill the air with words. Silence, when held with confidence, is powerful. It gives space for others to speak, and it makes your eventual words stand out more. When you don't speak just to speak, people realize that when you do speak, it matters. You're not trying to win attention. You're trying to make an impact, and that changes everything. Finally, anchor yourself in values. Know what you stand for. Know what you won't tolerate. Know your purpose. When you're clear on those things, your energy becomes immovable. You become the kind of person who doesn't shift with every trend or bend under pressure. You become someone others can rely on or fear depending on which side they stand. Remember this: you don't have to raise your voice to raise your power. You don't have to chase attention to be seen. An unshakable presence isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. The quieter you become, the more you notice. The calmer you stay, the more others react. And when you walk into a room fully grounded in who you are, you don't need to intimidate anyone. Your energy already does it for you. So start now. Straighten your spine, slow your movements. Speak with care. And carry yourself like someone who doesn't just know their value, but refuses to hide it. Your presence is your power. Own it fully, and you'll never need to say a word to be taken seriously again. 3. Let your actions speak. In a world that constantly rewards loudness, the person who lets their actions speak becomes unforgettable. Most people try to prove themselves through words, promises, declarations, exaggerated plans. But here's the truth: talk is cheap. Anyone can say what they're going to do. The real power belongs to the person who quietly shows up, delivers results, and never has to explain themselves. Think about it. How many people do you know who constantly talk about their goals, their future, their big ideas, but never follow through? Their words are full of energy, but their actions lack discipline. That's not strength, that's noise. And eventually, people stop listening. But when you lead with action instead of words, something changes. You become someone people watch closely. You earn their respect not by trying to impress, but by proving yourself without asking for recognition. Stoic philosophy teaches us that words are easy, but discipline is rare. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That line alone holds a lifetime of power. You don't need to tell people who you are, show them. Let your work reflect your values. Let your consistency speak for your character. Let your results reveal your strength. When you stop trying to convince people and start focusing on excellence, everything about you becomes more powerful. Let me tell you a story about someone I knew. Let's call him Jack. Jack was always full of ambition. He'd talk endlessly about the business he was going to start, the habits he was building, the transformation he was planning. People listened at first, but over time nothing happened. He kept talking and kept stalling. Eventually, his words lost their weight. People stopped believing him, not because they didn't like him, but because he didn't back up what he said. One day, Jack made a decision. He stopped talking about it. No more announcements, no more updates. He just went silent and started working. Every day he made progress. Small steps, consistent actions, no explanations. He didn't post about it. He didn't seek approval. And months later, when his project launched and people saw what he'd built, the respect he earned was immediate. He didn't have to say a word. His results spoke for him. This is what you need to understand. Your actions are the loudest voice you'll ever have. When you move in silence and produce results, people start paying attention. They might not notice at first, but that's fine. Let your success surprise them. Let your progress make the statement you've been trying to say with words. When you do that, you shift the power dynamic. You're no longer seeking validation, you're setting the standard. So how do you live this out? How do you let your actions speak so powerfully that words become unnecessary? First, be consistent. Not perfect, not flashy, just consistent. Show up every day and put in the work, especially when no one's watching. Most people are only motivated when they feel inspired or when eyes are on them. But the person who keeps going, regardless of attention, that's the one people remember. Discipline is more impressive than talent, and showing up is more rare than big talk. Second, pursue excellence. Don't just aim to get things done. Aim to do them well. Excellence isn't about perfection, it's about care. It's about attention to detail, pride in your work, and a refusal to settle for mediocrity. When you pursue excellence, even your smallest efforts leave an impression. People may not see all the work behind the scenes, but they'll feel the quality. They'll sense the depth, and that speaks louder than anything you could ever say. Third, stop announcing your every move. Not because your goals aren't valid, but because silence gives you focus. Every time you talk about what you're going to do, you give away energy. You invite noise. You open the door to doubt, distraction, and even sabotage. But when you keep your plans private and just keep moving forward, no one can slow you down. You protect your momentum. You stay in control. And when the results finally arrive, no one can deny them. The truth is, most people won't take you seriously until they see what you've built, and that's okay. You don't need everyone to believe in your journey. You just need to keep going. Let your effort become your identity. Let your results be your reputation. Let your actions speak so clearly that no words are ever needed. At the end of the day, power doesn't come from telling people what you'll do. It comes from doing it, quietly, consistently, with focus and determination. Be the kind of person who doesn't need to talk about their greatness because their work already says everything. In the eyes of your enemies, that silence will be louder than any threat, and in the minds of others, your legacy will echo without ever needing a voice. 4. Never overreact to insults. Insults are a test, and most people fail. When someone mocks you, undermines you, or tries to pull you down with words, your reaction reveals everything. That's why they do it. They want to provoke you, to expose your weakness, to make you lose your cool so they can feel stronger. But here's the truth. The moment you overreact, you hand them the power. You give them control over your emotions. You become predictable, and predictable people are easy to manipulate. But imagine the opposite. Imagine someone hurling an insult at you and you don't flinch. You don't defend yourself. You don't even raise an eyebrow. You remain calm, unaffected, and indifferent. That silence, that stillness becomes deafening. It forces the other person to sit in the weight of their own words, and when you show them that their opinion means nothing to you, you become untouchable. This is where Stoic wisdom shines. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you respond. The Stoics understood that insults are external. They have no power unless you let them inside. When someone speaks cruelly to you, they are only revealing themselves, not defining you. And if you respond with anger or insecurity, all you've done is confirm their narrative. But if you remain composed, you reveal a strength they can't understand, and that's what makes them afraid. Let me share a story. There was a woman I once knew. We'll call her Linda. She worked in a high-pressure environment where one of her coworkers constantly belittled her. Sarcasm, backhanded compliments, passive-aggressive comments, it was relentless. At first, Linda fought back. She tried to defend herself in meetings, prove her worth, and confront the behavior. But nothing changed. In fact, it got worse. Her reactions only fueled the fire. And the more emotional she became, the more this colleague pushed her buttons. Then Linda decided to take a different approach. She stopped reacting. The next time an insult came her way, she met it with silence. No defense, no explanation. Just a calm, steady gaze and a shift in attention. Her coworker didn't know what to do. The energy he thrived on was gone. Over time, the attack stopped, not because Linda fought harder, but because she refused to fight at all. She reclaimed her power by choosing indifference. Indifference doesn't mean you don't care. It means you choose peace over pettiness. It means you understand the game and you refuse to play it. When someone insults you, they are fishing for a reaction. They want to see you squirm, get angry, or doubt yourself. But when they get nothing, no crack, no weakness, they lose interest. And more importantly, they lose control. So how do you build that kind of emotional armor? How do you train yourself to stay calm when someone attacks you? First, recognize what insults really are. They're projections. Most people who insult others are insecure themselves. They lash out to feel powerful, to distract from their own pain, or to assert dominance they haven't earned. When you understand that, it becomes easier to take their words less personally. Their opinion of you is not your reality. Second, create space between the insult and your response. Take a breath. Count to 5. Let the moment pass without reacting. This space gives you clarity. It allows your rational mind to step in before your emotions take over. And it reminds you that you are not obligated to respond to every attack. Third, reframe the situation. Ask yourself, does this really matter? Will this affect my future, my values, my purpose? If the answer is no, then don't give it weight. Protect your energy. Not every battle is worth fighting, especially when your silence does more damage than your words ever could. And finally, remember this. Your self-worth is not up for negotiation. If someone tries to tear you down, that's their problem, not yours. Your value doesn't change based on someone's inability to see it. And the moment you stop letting insults affect you, you free yourself from one of the most common forms of emotional control. Your silence is power. Your composure is power. And when people realize they can't hurt you with words, they start to see you differently. They may not like you, but they'll respect you. Or they'll fear you. Either way, you've already won. In a world where people are quick to react and quicker to take offense, the one who remains calm becomes the most powerful person in the room. The one who doesn't flinch under fire, who doesn't fight back with ego, but instead holds their ground with stillness. That person becomes a force others can't control. So the next time someone tries to insult you, don't fight. Don't explain. Don't defend. Just stand firm in who you are, and let your silence speak the truth. You're too strong to be shaken by small minds. 5. Control what they know about you. In a world obsessed with sharing, where people overshare every emotion, every plan, every flaw, the one who controls what others know becomes the most powerful person in the room. Let's get one thing clear. The more predictable you are, the more vulnerable you become. The more you expose your weaknesses, your desires, and your fears, the easier it is for others to manipulate you. But when you keep parts of yourself hidden, when you master the art of mystery, you make yourself harder to read, harder to provoke, and almost impossible to control. People are always watching, listening, trying to figure you out. And if you give away too much, even unintentionally, you're handing them a map to your mind. They learn how to push your buttons, how to undermine your confidence, how to distract or derail you. But if you control the narrative, if you decide what they know, what they see, and when, you hold the power. You become the one who sets the terms. This doesn't mean being dishonest. It means being strategic. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that inner peace and strength come from self-mastery. And part of that mastery is learning what to reveal and what to protect. Seneca once said, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." That's not about deception. It's about being unpredictable. It's about never giving anyone the full picture unless it serves your purpose. Let me give you a real-world example. There was a man I once worked with. Let's call him Chris. He was friendly, open, and always seemed to be the first to share things about his life, his goals, his struggles, even his insecurities. He believed that being transparent built trust, and while that might be true with friends in a competitive environment, it backfired. His colleagues began using that information against him. If he admitted he was overwhelmed, they added pressure. If he shared an idea, someone would quietly run with it. Over time, Chris realized that his openness had made him easy to control. So he changed. He started keeping things to himself. He became more selective about what he shared and with whom. He listened more and spoke less. His work spoke for itself, and he stopped broadcasting his thoughts and plans. The result? People started respecting him more because they couldn't predict his every move. They couldn't manipulate him. And that made him someone they didn't want to cross. When people don't know your intentions, they can't interfere. When they don't know your weaknesses, they can't exploit them. And when they can't predict your behavior, they become cautious around you. That's power. So how do you start controlling what people know about you? First, stop oversharing. You don't need to broadcast your feelings, your plans, or your personal life. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Speak with purpose. Share with intention. Every piece of information you give away should be something you've chosen, not something you felt pressured to reveal. Second, master the power of silence. In conversations, especially with those you don't fully trust, listen more than you speak. Let others reveal themselves while you remain a mystery. When people talk too much, they often expose more than they realize. But when you speak less, every word carries weight. Third, be selective with your inner circle. It's okay to trust, but earn that trust slowly. True strength lies not just in being honest, but in being discerning. Not everyone has your best interest at heart, and even those who do might unintentionally leak something they shouldn't. Protect your boundaries. Guard your thoughts. Fourth, project calm, even when you feel chaos inside. The more emotional you appear, the more people think they can read you. But when you maintain composure, even in moments of pressure or conflict, you send a clear message. You don't know what I'm thinking. You don't get to control me. And that unknown is powerful. Lastly, use your strength strategically. Sometimes it's better to let people underestimate you. If they think you're harmless, they let their guard down. And when the time comes to act, you catch them off balance. Being underestimated can be one of your greatest advantages if you've learned to control what people see. Remember, mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about protection. It's about valuing your peace, your plans, and your power enough to keep them guarded. You don't owe anyone a full explanation of who you are. You don't have to be an open book to be respected. In fact, the less they know, the more they guess. The more they guess, the more power you hold. When you walk through life with quiet confidence, when you're intentional with your words and selective with your energy, you become untouchable. You become a force no one can fully predict or control. And that's exactly why they'll start to fear you. So say less, reveal less, move with purpose, not noise, and watch how much more powerful you become the moment you take back control of your own story. 6. Make power moves in silence. There's something profoundly powerful about moving in silence. In a culture obsessed with attention and self-promotion, staying quiet about your goals, your strategies, and your progress is both rare and strategic. While others are busy announcing what they're about to do, you stay focused on doing it. No announcements, no warnings, just results. And when those results show up, they speak for you louder than any boast ever could. We live in a world where people reveal too much, too soon. They post their plans online, they talk endlessly about what they're building. They share their goals with anyone who will listen. But the more you reveal, the more exposed you become. When you tell people what you're working on, you open the door to opinions, doubts, and interference. People will try to help, correct you, compete with you, or even sabotage you, sometimes intentionally, often without realizing it. But when you move in silence, you protect your vision. You stay focused. You stay clean. No noise, no distractions, just progress. Power doesn't need to announce itself. In fact, real power almost never does. It just shows up. Quietly. Unapologetically. And by the time others realize what's happened, it's already too late. That's the energy you want to embody. That's what Stoic wisdom teaches us, to stay rooted, focused, and private, especially when the stakes are high. Epictetus said, "Do not explain your philosophy, embody it." In modern terms, stop talking about it, be about it. When you're truly committed to something, you don't need the world to validate your direction. You don't need applause before the job is done. You don't need to prove your ambition to anyone. The results will speak for themselves. Let me tell you a story. A woman I know, we'll call her Emma, was always excited about her dreams. She would share every new idea with friends, co-workers, even strangers. Every time she had a breakthrough or a plan, she'd announce it. And at first it felt exciting. People would give her praise, encouragement, or advice. But slowly, she started noticing something. The more she talked, the less she did. The validation became a substitute for action. And worse, the advice and criticism she received began to confuse her. People would plant doubt, question her abilities, or offer opinions that pulled her off track. Her energy became scattered, her focus diluted. Then Emma made a shift. She stopped talking and started working. No more public declarations, no more explaining. She kept her plans to herself. Quietly, she showed up every day, built in private, and let her work grow in the shadows. Months later, when she launched her project, people were stunned. No one saw it coming, and no one could argue with the result. It was clean, powerful, and fully formed, because it wasn't built for applause. It was built with focus. This is the power of silent progress. When no one knows what you're doing, no one can stop you. When you're not performing for attention, your energy stays where it belongs, on execution. And when your results arrive, there's nothing left to say. People will have no choice but to respect you. So how do you start making power moves in silence? First, stop announcing your intentions. You don't need to tell everyone what your next step is. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. The fewer people who know your moves, the harder it is to disrupt them. Let people wonder what you're working on. Let them guess. Your unpredictability is a form of power. Second, stay laser-focused on the work. Your energy is sacred. Don't waste it on seeking approval. Don't waste it on explaining. Every minute you spend talking about your goals is a minute you could have spent building them. Protect your time. Protect your focus. Make your work the loudest thing about you. Third, let your results speak. When your progress becomes visible, it should be undeniable. That doesn't mean flashy or overhyped. It means strong, solid, real. Something that makes people stop and say, I didn't even know they were working on that, but look at what they've done. That's the mark of someone who leads with discipline instead of noise. And finally, embrace the quiet season. There will be times when it feels like no one sees your effort, no recognition, no validation. That's okay. That's actually where the magic happens. Growth happens in the shadows. Mastery is built in silence. And when you emerge, you'll be sharper, stronger, and more respected because you didn't need the world watching to become great. You did it when no one was paying attention. People often mistake silence for inactivity, but silence is where the greatest transformations happen. Think of the seed beneath the soil, quiet, invisible, but every day it's reaching, growing, preparing, and then one day it breaks through and no one can deny its presence. Be like that seed. Stop announcing. Stop seeking attention. Build in silence. Work while others talk. And when the time is right, let your results be the roar that silence was preparing all along. At the end of the day, true strength doesn't need to be loud. The strongest moves are made in stillness. The biggest breakthroughs come in private. And the most dangerous person in the room is the one no one saw coming because they were too focused on the noise to notice the storm being built in silence. So, move quietly. Let your progress be your proof, and remember, the less you say, the more they'll wonder. And the more they wonder, the more power you hold. 7. Be unapologetically yourself. In a world full of imitation where people try so hard to fit in, to be accepted, to please everyone, they end up losing the one thing that makes them powerful, their authenticity. Being unapologetically yourself isn't just about confidence, it's about freedom. It's about walking through the world with your head high, knowing that who you are, flaws, strengths, and all, is enough. And more than enough, it's exactly what makes you powerful. Most people live in fear of judgment. They silence their true voice. They shrink their dreams. They second-guess their instincts. Why? Because they want approval. They want to be liked. But here's the truth that the Stoics understood and lived by. The moment you seek the crowd's validation, you give up control over your own life. You become a puppet to opinions, a slave to image. And that's not strength. That's fear dressed up as conformity. Epictetus once said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That sounds harsh, but it's pure freedom. What he meant is this. To grow, to be truly free, you must stop caring how others perceive you. You must be willing to be misunderstood, laughed at, criticized, and still remain true to who you are. That's real courage. That's real power. And when people see that you won't bend to be liked, they start to respect you or fear you because you're no longer playing the same game as everyone else. When you're unapologetically yourself, you stop explaining your every move. You stop apologizing for your uniqueness. You stop watering yourself down to fit into places that were never meant to hold you. And that shift creates a ripple effect. You start attracting what's real opportunities, real relationships, real peace. Because when you stand in your truth, the world adjusts around you. You don't have to chase belonging. You become the standard. Let me tell you about someone I once knew. We'll call him Jake. Jake was the kind of guy who always tried to fit in. He'd change his tone depending on who he was talking to. He laughed at jokes he didn't find funny. He avoided conflict. He dimmed his light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. And on the surface, he seemed well-liked. But inside, he felt lost, tired, disconnected. Because every day he was performing, and that performance came with a cost. Eventually, Jake couldn't do it anymore. He hit a point where he realized that trying to please everyone was draining him of who he really was. So he made a choice. He stopped faking it. He started saying what he actually believed. He let go of the fear of being disliked. He walked away from people who only accepted the version of him he had been pretending to be. And at first it was lonely. Some people distanced themselves. Some didn't like the change. But over time, something amazing happened. Jake started feeling powerful, whole, grounded. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't hiding. He was free. That's the reward of being unapologetically yourself. Not popularity, but peace. Not approval, but alignment. You become rooted in something deeper than opinions. You become your own foundation. And from that place, you don't need to impress anyone because you're already living in truth. So how do you reach that place? How do you become unapologetically you? even in a world that constantly pressures you to conform. First, stop seeking validation. This is the hardest step, but the most important. You don't need the world to agree with you in order to be right for yourself. You don't need the crowd to cheer you on to be walking the right path. Learn to validate yourself, trust your instincts, know your values, and live by them even when they're unpopular. Second, embrace your uniqueness. The things that make you different are not weaknesses. They're your greatest strengths, your quirks, your passions, your perspective. They exist for a reason. They're not flaws to be hidden. They're features to be sharpened and shared. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the most fully expressed version of you. Third, speak your truth. You don't have to be loud or aggressive, but you do have to be honest. When something matters to you, say it. When something feels wrong, stand against it. When you have something valuable to offer, don't hold back out of fear. Your voice matters. Use it with integrity and courage. Fourth, set boundaries. When you live authentically, not everyone will like it, and that's okay. Some people will try to pull you back into the mold you broke out of. Don't let them. Respect yourself enough to say no, to walk away from anything that asks you to be less than who you are. Boundaries are how you protect your power. They're not walls to keep the world out. They're doors that decide who gets to stay. And finally, accept that not everyone will understand you, and that's not your job. Your job is not to convince people of your worth. It's not to justify your choices or edit your soul so others feel more comfortable. Your job is to live in alignment with what's true for you. The rest will either rise to meet you or fall away. The Stoics didn't teach us to fit in. They taught us to live by virtue, to rise above opinion, and to stay grounded in our own reason and values. Being unapologetically yourself is the modern extension of that philosophy. It means living with courage in a world built on conformity. It means choosing truth over popularity. And it means walking your own path, even if you have to walk it alone. Because here's the secret. The more you become yourself, the less power anyone else has over you. You stop reacting to critics. You stop chasing validation. You stop hiding. And in that state of authenticity, you become something people don't know how to handle. Free, fearless, and impossible to control. So if you want to be truly powerful, don't try to become someone else's version of success. Become the most honest, fully expressed version of who you already are. That's where your greatness lives. Not in perfection, but in presence. Not in imitation, but in truth. Be unapologetically yourself. And watch how the world begins to adjust to you, because once you've claimed your space with confidence, there's nothing left to prove. Now you know the truth. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks silently. It stays calm. It builds in private. It controls itself. And because of that, it controls everything else. The 7 Stoic strategies you've just learned, mastering your emotions, building unshakable presence, letting your actions speak, staying calm in the face of insults, guarding your inner world, making silent moves, and living unapologetically, are not just tactics to deal with enemies. They are principles for living a stronger, freer life. Practice them, embody them. And you won't just earn respect, you'll earn fear, in the quietest, most dignified way possible. Not because you threatened anyone, but because your very existence commands attention. That's the power of a true Stoic. If today's video opened your eyes or helped you reclaim a piece of yourself, we ask one small thing. Support our channel, Deep Dive Stoic, by subscribing and sharing this message. It helps us reach more souls who are ready to rise above the noise and choose wisdom over chaos. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay mindful, stay steady, and no matter what the world throws your way, stay stoic.